You dare defy me?
I had no choice.
There is always a choice.
Not this time.
The alarms began to howl across the metal streets of the outpost, red lights flashing against cold silver walls, and the human ran. He was tall but thin, his breath uneven, his boots hitting the ground too loudly for someone who wanted to disappear. Behind him, the air felt heavy, as if the planet itself knew who was chasing him. Commander Sarixa moved through the streets without fear, her long armored steps calm and controlled. She did not run. She never needed to. Her eyes glowed faintly as her scanners tracked the human's heartbeat, fast and familiar. This was not the first time. He had escaped her patrols before, vanished into crowds, slipped through transport gates, always just ahead of her reach. And every time, the same question burned in her mind. Why did this weak human keep running from her? The galaxy knew humans as small, fragile beings, useful for labor, good at surviving, but never worth fear. Yet this one made her instinct scream. Not danger, not threat, something deeper, something unfinished. The human turned sharply into a narrow passage, steam rising from broken vents. He pressed his back to the wall, counting breaths, forcing his shaking hands to still. He had done this many times, but tonight felt different. He whispered to himself that he could not let her remember. If she remembered, everything would end. Sarixa slowed as she entered the passage, her presence filling the space. She could hear his heart now without instruments. She could smell the fear, and something else, regret. Human, she called, her voice smooth but sharp, echoing against the metal. You cannot hide forever. He closed his eyes for a moment, pain crossing his face. Then he moved again, slipping past her sensors at the last second, darting through a service door. Sarixa's eyes widened slightly, a rare crack in her calm. Impossible. No human should move like that. As she followed, a strange pressure filled her chest. A memory almost surfaced, like a shadow just out of reach. A human hand pulling her from fire, a voice shouting her name. She stopped herself, angry now. Her kind did not imagine things. The chase spilled into an open platform, where ships hovered and cargo drones buzzed. Workers scattered as they saw the commander's crest, fear sending them running in all directions. The human had nowhere left to go. He skidded to a halt at the edge of the platform, staring at the endless stars below. Cold air rushed past him, carrying the scent of fuel and metal. This was the end of the path. Sarixa stepped forward slowly, her weapon still lowered. She did not want to kill him, though she did not yet know why. You are exhausted, she said, her tone almost gentle. Stop running. He laughed softly, a broken sound. If I stop, he said quietly, you will ask questions. I am asking now, she replied, stepping closer. Why do you flee from me, human? For a moment, he considered jumping, ending it all before the truth could surface. But something in her eyes stopped him. The stars reflected in her gaze, and he remembered another time, another sky, a promise made and broken. Before he could answer, security drones began to descend, summoned by the alarms. Sarixa raised a hand, halting them. This one is mine, she ordered, her authority absolute. The human looked at her, truly looked, and pain twisted his face. She was closer now than ever before, close enough for memories to wake. At this moment, if you are enjoying this story and want to hear how this chase changes the fate of the galaxy, gently consider subscribing to this channel so you do not miss what comes next. Sarixa stopped only a few steps away from him, her voice lowered, raw with emotion she did not understand. Why do you keep running from me? She demanded. The human straightened slowly, exhaustion weighing on him. He met her eyes at last. No fear left, only sadness. Because, he said, his voice steady despite everything, if you remember who I am, you will have to kill me. The words hit her like a physical blow. The platform seemed to tilt, the stars spinning behind him, and somewhere deep inside her mind, a memory began to crack open. The words stayed in the air long after the human stopped speaking, heavy and sharp. Commander Sarixa did not move, her hand still raised, the security drones frozen in place. For the first time in many cycles, her thoughts felt slow and disordered. Kill me. The phrase echoed again and again inside her mind. She had executed traitors, rebels, even entire battle crews, without hesitation. Yet this human stood before her without chains, without weapons, and spoke as if death was already decided. Not with fear, but with certainty. Sirixa straightened, her expression turning cold to hide the confusion beneath. "You speak as if your life belongs to me," she said. "Explain yourself." The human shook his head slowly, strands of dark hair falling into his tired eyes. "I cannot," he replied. "Not yet." That answer angered her more than defiance ever could. With a sharp motion, she activated a restraint field around him, invisible bands locking his arms to his sides. The drones lowered, forming a silent circle. "You will come with me," Sirixa ordered, "and you will not run again." As they moved through the outpost, workers pressed themselves against walls, eyes downcast. Whispers followed them like shadows. A human captured by the Iron Commander was not an ordinary sight. The human walked calmly now, his earlier panic gone. Every step felt like walking deeper into a memory he had tried to bury. He watched the lights pass overhead and wondered how much time remained. Inside the command corridor, Sirixa dismissed the guards. She wanted answers without witnesses. She did not understand why, but this felt personal. She activated the room seal, the door sliding shut with a deep metallic sound. Silence settled between them, thick and uncomfortable. "Name," she said, turning to face him. He hesitated, then spoke softly. "Call me what you want." Her jaw tightened. "No one refuses me a name." A strange pain flared behind her eyes, sudden and sharp. For a brief second, she saw flames, broken armor, and a human shouting orders. She stumbled back half a step, shocked by her own weakness. The human noticed, his eyes widening. "It is starting," he whispered. Sirixa recovered quickly, fury burning away the fear. "What is starting?" she demanded. He looked at the floor. "The past." She turned away from him and moved to the central console. With rapid motions, she accessed restricted archives, files sealed even for most commanders. Her instincts guided her fingers, as if she had done this before. A list appeared on the screen. Unregistered human encounters, memory classifications, emergency wipe orders. Her breath slowed as she scrolled. Each file carried the mark of the Galactic Council, and each one mentioned the same phrase, Project Ghost Human. Sirixa froze. She knew that name. Or rather, she knew she should not know it. The human lifted his head when he saw the title, his face pale. "You were never meant to find that," he said quietly. Sirixa turned slowly, her eyes sharp. "I do not like secrets kept from me." She opened the first file. Images filled the screen, blurred and corrupted. Human ships burning, alien fleets shattered, battlefields wiped clean. And there, standing in the center of one image, was a human silhouette, unharmed, watching the destruction like a silent witness. Her heart began to race. "That is impossible," she said. The human's voice was low, almost regretful. "That is why they erased it." As the files continued, fragments of truth emerged. Humans listed as weak and secondary species in public records. But classified notes told a different story. Humans who adapted too fast. Humans who survived environments that killed others. Humans who learned instead of conquering. Sirixa's hands trembled slightly. She remembered battles that ended too easily. Enemies retreating without explanation. She remembered surviving explosions that should have killed her. A memory surfaced again, clearer this time. A human pushing her into a shield field, shouting her name. Her name. She gasped and shut the console off. "No," she said, more to herself than to him. The human took a slow step forward despite the restraints. "They made you forget," he said. "You were not supposed to protect me again." "Protect you," she repeated, disbelief thick in her voice. "You are a prisoner." He met her eyes, and something ancient passed between them. "Once," he said, "you protected me too." Outside the sealed room, distant alarms echoed again, softer this time. The outpost was returning to order, unaware that its commander's world was breaking apart. Sirixa felt anger rising, not at the human, but at the council, at the lies layered so carefully into her mind. at the empty spaces where memories should have lived. You expect me to believe that the council altered my mind, she said. The human nodded. Because you asked them to. That sentence struck harder than any weapon. She stared at him, stunned. I would never, she began, then stopped. Another memory cracked through her thoughts. Her own voice, tired and afraid, saying erase it all before they find him. Sarixa clenched her fists. If this is true, she said slowly, then the galaxy is standing on a lie. The human closed his eyes. It always has been. Suddenly, the console flared back to life on its own, overridden by an external command. A council symbol filled the screen, pulsing red. Incoming priority order. Locate and secure Project Ghost Human. Authorization level absolute. Sarixa looked from the screen to the human, realizing the hunt was never truly hers. She was only a piece on a much larger board. And this time, the galaxy itself was watching. The council symbol faded from the screen, but its presence remained, like a shadow that refused to leave the room. Commander Sarixa stood very still, her eyes fixed on the dark console, her thoughts racing faster than any battle calculation. Project Ghost Human. Absolute authorization. Those words were not used lightly. The human felt a change in the air, the moment when confusion turned into danger. He straightened as much as the restraint field allowed, his voice calm but urgent. They know you have me, he said. Sarixa turned toward him slowly, her face unreadable. Then you should start telling the truth, she replied. All of it. For a long moment, the human said nothing. He looked at her, as if trying to decide how much damage honesty would cause. Finally, he spoke. Humans were never meant to leave Earth, he said. We survived because we learned how to hide. Sarixa folded her arms, listening, though every instinct told her this story would change everything. When we first reached the stars, he continued, we were weak, slow, divided. Other species saw us and judged us correctly. He paused, then added quietly, at least at first. The restraint field shimmered as Sarixa adjusted its strength, not to tighten it, but to stabilize it. You are saying your kind lied about itself, she said. The human nodded. We let the galaxy believe we were harmless. Images appeared uninvited in Sarixa's mind. Humans taking the worst jobs, living on broken worlds, serving under stronger races. She had seen them everywhere and never looked twice. That was the plan, the human said, as if reading her thoughts. Be everywhere, noticed by no one. Sarixa's eyes narrowed. And Project Ghost Human. The human exhaled slowly. That was what came after. He told her of a war erased from public record, a war that happened before her rise as commander, a war where entire fleets vanished without explanation. Your council faced something they could not defeat, he said, so they asked humans for help. Sarixa felt her chest tighten. Humans do not command fleets, she said. We do not need to, he replied. We change outcomes. He explained in simple words, carefully chosen. Humans were adaptable beyond calculation. They learned alien systems quickly. They survived mental stress that broke others. But the true secret was not strength or intelligence. It was endurance. We remember pain, he said, and we keep moving. Sarixa's fingers curled slowly. She remembered battlefields soaked in loss. She remembered standing when others fell. And you, she asked, what makes you different? The human hesitated, then answered, I was one of the first. The first humans trained to interface with ancient structures found deep in space. Structures older than any known race. Machines that responded only to minds willing to break and rebuild themselves. Most did not survive, he said softly. Those who did were never meant to be seen again. Sarixa felt a sudden sharp ache behind her eyes. Fragments of memory pushed harder now. A hidden base, alarm screaming, a human standing between her and an energy surge. You were there, she whispered, shocked by her own words. The human looked at her with quiet sadness. Yes, he said, and you saved me. Her breath caught. No, she said, that cannot be true. He continued before she could stop him. The council panicked, he said. They feared what humans could become if left unchecked. So they rewrote history. They classified the war. They buried the project. And they erased you, the human said, his voice heavy. Because you chose to protect a human instead of obeying an order. Sarixa staggered back, gripping the edge of the table. She saw it now, clearer than before. Council chambers burning with argument, her voice raised in defiance. If you kill him, you will regret it. Her own words echoed in her head. You asked them to erase your memories, the human said gently, so you could keep serving, so you would not be executed. The room felt too small, too quiet. Outside, distant engines roared as council ships entered orbit. Their arrival sent a cold certainty through Sarixa's spine. They are coming, she said. Yes, the human replied, and this time they will not ask. Sarixa looked at him, truly looked at him, not as prey, not as a secret, but as something the galaxy feared enough to lie about. You ran because of me, she said slowly. If they saw me, remember. They would kill you, he finished. A harsh truth settled between them. Her presence was both his shield and his sentence. Sarixa deactivated the restraint field without warning. The energy bands vanished, leaving the human free. He stared at her in surprise. You should not trust me, he said. I do not, she replied honestly, but I trust my instincts. Alarms flared again, louder this time. Council enforcement squads breached the outer hangars. Sarixa drew her weapon, not aiming it at the human, but at the sealed door. For centuries, she said, I served the council without question. She glanced at him, her eyes burning with resolve. Now I will ask my own. The human took a slow breath, understanding the risk she was taking. Once she crossed this line, there would be no return. As the door began to shake under incoming fire, Sarixa made her choice. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, a secret humans never told was about to be exposed. The first blast hit the sealed door with a deep metallic roar, the entire room shaking as lights flickered above. Commander Sarixa stood firm, weapon raised, her body ready for battle, but her mind was no longer fully present. Something was breaking inside her. Not fear, not doubt. Memory. The human stepped back instinctively, watching her face change. He had seen this before, on another station, under another sky. This was the moment the past began to fight its way back. Sarixa pressed a hand to her head as a sharp pain spread behind her eyes. Images flashed without warning, fast and violent. A battlefield covered in smoke. Alien ships falling from a sky. And a human voice shouting her name again and again. No, she whispered, her voice strained. You took this from me. Another blast struck the door, closer now, more powerful. Council forces were not trying to capture. They were trying to erase. The human moved toward her carefully, not touching her, but close enough for his presence to anchor her. Do not fight it, he said softly. They cannot stop it anymore. She dropped to one knee, her weapon clattering to the floor. The pain surged, but so did clarity. She saw herself years ago, younger, less hardened, standing in a hidden facility far from council eyes. Humans and aliens working side by side. Fear and hope mixed in every breath. At the center of it all stood him. Not weak, not running. Calm, focused, guiding ancient machines older than any empire. You were never a soldier, she whispered, realization flooding her voice. You were a key. He nodded slowly. And you were my shield. Another memory surged forward, stronger than the rest. An order flashing across her command screen. Execute the human asset immediately. Threat level absolute. She remembered the weight of that moment, the silence in the room, the council watching her choice. She had turned away from the screen. She had looked at him, standing alone and unarmed, and she had made a decision that changed everything. I will not do this. Her own voice echoed clearly now, strong and defiant. Kill him, and you will create an enemy you cannot control. The pain peaked, then suddenly eased. Sarixa gasped as the final barrier in her mind shattered. She remembered asking for the memory wipe, standing before the council, knowing the cost. Erase it, or erase me. The present crashed back into focus as the door split under sustained fire. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the room. Sarixa rose slowly to her feet, no longer confused, no longer unsure. Her eyes burned with purpose. They did this, she said, her voice steady now, dangerous. They broke my mind to keep their lie alive. The human felt something shift in her presence. She was no longer just a commander. She was awake. Council troops forced the door open, weapons raised, armor gleaming. Their leader stepped forward, voice amplified. Commander Sarixa, stand down. She did not answer. Instead, she stepped in front of the human without hesitation. You erased my memories, she said coldly. You used me. The officer paused, clearly unprepared for this response. Your memories were a threat to galactic stability, he replied. Truth always is, Sarixa said. The human watched her, a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. This was the moment he had feared, the moment she fully remembered him. She glanced back at him briefly, her voice softening. I remember the promise, she said. I remember why you ran. Council weapons charged, humming with lethal energy. Commander, the officer warned, you are out of alignment. Sarixa raised her weapon slowly, not aiming at the soldiers, but at the ceiling controls. One precise shot sent the hangar doors blasting open. Emergency alarms screamed as the room depressurized. The human grabbed onto a rail, bracing himself. Sarixa stood unmoving, her armor locking into combat mode automatically. You forgot, she said over the roar. But I remembered enough. She turned to the human, meeting his eyes fully now. Clear, focused, unbroken. I chose you once, she said, and I will choose you again. Council forces scrambled as gravity shifted, the station systems failing under emergency overrides. The carefully controlled order of the galaxy began to slip, as escape corridors opened and chaos spread through the outpost. Sarixa felt something she had not felt in years. Freedom. And somewhere deep in her restored memories, she knew one truth with absolute certainty. The past they erased was not dead. It was only waiting. The outpost burned with confusion. Corridors filled with flashing lights and overlapping alarms. Gravity shifting in short, violent waves. Commander Sarixa moved with purpose through the chaos, one hand guiding the human forward, the other ready on her weapon. Council forces regrouped faster than expected. They always did. Control was what they understood best. They will not stop now, the human said as they reached a junction overlooking the hangar. They cannot allow me to exist. Sarixa did not slow. Then they should not have reminded me who I am, she replied. Across the hangar, Council ships descended in perfect formation, sleek and merciless, blocking every possible escape route. Broadcast towers activated at once, their signals spreading far beyond the station. A voice filled the air, calm and authoritative. Attention all systems, attention all sectors. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, the human-designated Project Ghost is declared an existential threat. The human closed his eyes briefly. It has begun, he said. Screens across the station lit up, showing the same image. His face, recorded during an earlier cycle, calm and expressionless. Under it a single command. Eliminate on sight. Sarixa felt a cold anger settle deep in her chest. They do not even name you, she said. They turn you into a symbol. That is safer for them, the human replied. If I am a monster, they do not have to explain why they feared us. The transmission continued, spreading beyond the station. Human colonies went silent. Trade routes closed. Allies turned away in fear. Within minutes, the galaxy began to shift. Borders sealed. Old treaties revoked. Every species reminded of ancient warnings about humanity. Warnings that were carefully crafted lies. Sarixa accessed tactical feeds as they moved, watching the damage unfold in real time. She saw human workers detained, human ships intercepted, human ambassadors erased from councils they had never truly been welcome in. They are punishing an entire species, she said, disbelief sharpening her voice. They always plan to. The human answered quietly. I was only the excuse. Council strike teams closed in from multiple corridors, weapons humming with lethal precision. Sarixa pushed the human behind cover as plasma fire tore through the air. She returned fire with controlled bursts, buying seconds, precious seconds. You cannot fight them all, the human said. Not alone. I am not alone, she snapped. Not anymore. As if summoned by her words, a new signal cut through the Council command channel, unmarked and encrypted. Unknown vessels dropped from hidden jump points around the station, their designs unfamiliar, older, rougher. The human froze, recognition flashing across his face. They should not be here, he whispered. Sirixa glanced at the feed. Who are they? He hesitated, then answered. Humans. Not the humans the galaxy knew. These ships moved differently, unpredictably. They did not attack directly, instead disabling weapons, disrupting sensors, forcing Council fleets into confusion. They survived, the human said, awe and guilt in his voice. The ones who were meant to disappear. The Council responded immediately. A new transmission overrode all others, its tone sharper, more desperate. All forces, priority shift. Human presence confirmed. Total eradication authorized. Sirixa felt the weight of that order settle like gravity. This is no longer about you, she said. They are declaring war on humanity itself. Yes, the human replied, and humanity will not answer the way they expect. The station shuddered as an explosion rocked the hangar. Emergency shutters slammed down, cutting off retreat paths. Council troops advanced again, relentless, disciplined, afraid. Sirixa activated her personal shield and stepped forward, drawing their fire. Go, she ordered the human. There is a maintenance tunnel behind that wall. He did not move. I am done running, he said. She turned on him sharply. This is not about pride. It never was, he replied. If I leave, they will hunt every human until there is nothing left. Another memory surfaced in Sirixa's mind, clearer than ever. A council chamber, her voice raised. If you push them into a corner, they will change the galaxy. She understood now. The council was not afraid of human strength. They were afraid of human response. The tunnel wall exploded outward as council heavy units arrived, weapons charged for execution. Sirixa positioned herself in front of the human once more. You want him, she shouted. Then you go through me. The officer leading the unit hesitated, recognition flickering in his eyes. Commander Sirixa, he said, stand aside. She raised her weapon, unwavering. I already did. Across the galaxy, similar moments unfolded. Humans refusing detention, allies questioning council orders, old enemies choosing silence instead of obedience. The lie was unraveling too fast to contain. The human leaned close to Sirixa, his voice low, urgent. There's one thing they never understood, he said. And what is that? She asked, never taking her eyes off the advancing weapons. He answered softly, with absolute certainty. When humans are hunted, we stop hiding. As council forces opened fire once more, and unknown human ships burned through the darkness of space, the galaxy crossed a line it could never step back from. The corridor shook as another blast hit nearby, the sound rolling through metal and bone alike. Smoke drifted low, mixing with sparks and broken light panels. Commander Sirixa stood unmoving in front of the human, her stance firm, her choice already made. The council forces hesitated again, not because they lacked weapons, but because something had changed. They could feel it, even if they did not understand it. The human placed a hand lightly on Sirixa's armored arm. You deserve the truth now, he said. All of it. She glanced back at him briefly, her eyes sharp but steady. Then speak, she replied. No more shadows. The human stepped forward slowly, raising his hands so the council soldiers could see he carried no weapon. I ran, he began, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. Not because I was afraid of dying. A murmur rippled through the soldiers. Sirixa felt her grip tighten on her weapon, but she did not interrupt him. I ran because staying near you would have destroyed you, he continued. Every time I came close, your memories started to wake. The lead council officer narrowed his eyes. You expect us to believe this? The human turned his gaze to the officer, unafraid. You erased her mind because she was already changing, he said, because she asked the wrong questions. Sirixa felt the words settle deep inside her. Fragments of old pain aligned into a clear shape. The human turned back to her, his voice softer now. When you remember me, You become a target, he said, not just to the council, but to everything they fear. She understood then. Every chase, every escape, every moment he disappeared just as she got close. It was not cowardice. It was distance. You stayed away to protect me, she said quietly. He nodded. If you had fully remembered earlier, they would have erased you completely. The council officer stepped forward, anger flashing across his face. You are manipulating her, he snapped. The human shook his head slowly. I never needed to, he replied. She always chose on her own. Sarixa felt something tighten in her chest, not fear, not doubt, respect. She remembered now, not just the events, but the feeling, standing alone against a council that ruled through silence, choosing a human because it was right, not because it was safe. And why now? She asked the human. Why stop running? He took a slow breath. Because the council crossed a line, he said. They turned their fear into genocide. Around them, the station continued to break apart. Human ships clashed with council fleets in the distance. Signals flickered on Sarix's display, showing unrest spreading across systems that had obeyed the council for centuries. I was created to end wars quietly, the human said, to shift outcomes without anyone knowing why. Sarixa looked at him sharply. And can you? She asked. He met her gaze fully. Yes, he said, but only once more. The council officer raised his weapon, panic breaking through his discipline. You will stand down, he ordered. The human did not move. Instead, he closed his eyes. The air around them changed. Not with light, not with sound, but with pressure, as if the universe itself leaned closer to listen. Sarixa felt it immediately. A deep hum beneath reality. Ancient, patient, awake. This is why they hit us, the human said, his voice steady even as the space around him warped slightly. Humans do not dominate through force. The council soldiers staggered as their targeting systems failed, displays filling with static. Weapons powered down one by one. Not broken, just unwilling. Sarixa stared, all mixing with understanding. You connect, she said slowly. He opened his eyes, and they reflected stars that were not there. We listen, he replied, and the universe answers. The council officer dropped his weapon, fear naked on his face. This is forbidden, he whispered. No, the human said calmly. It is forgotten. Sarixa stepped forward, her voice carrying authority stronger than any council decree. You hunted him because you were afraid, she said, and in doing so, you proved him right. She turned to the human again. You ran because staying would have forced this moment too soon, she said. Yes, he replied, and because I hoped the galaxy might grow without blood. A distant explosion rocked the station, larger than the others. A council flagship vanished from Sarix's tactical feed, disabled rather than destroyed. Human ships were not attacking. They were ending battles before they began. The human lowered his hands, the pressure fading. I cannot do this forever, he said, and I will not rule anyone. Sarixa nodded. That was never your purpose, she said. She turned to the council forces, now disarmed and shaken. The hunt is over, she declared, not because you failed, but because you never understood what you were chasing. As silence spread through the corridor, heavy and absolute, the human looked at Sarixa one last time before the next choice would reshape everything. I ran, he said softly, so that when I finally stopped, you would be strong enough to stand with me. And in that moment, Sarixa knew the final reckoning was coming, not with weapons, but with truth. Silence spread through the broken corridor like a living thing, heavy and watchful. Council soldiers stood frozen, weapons useless in their hands, training shattered by something they could not fight. Commander Sarixa lowered her weapon slowly, not in surrender, but in certainty. The hunt was over, but the reckoning was just beginning. Across the galaxy, signals stabilized, battles paused mid-motion, fleets locked in position without understanding why. Human ships did not advance, did not threaten, did not conquer. They simply existed, calmly and everywhere. The human stood beside Sarixa. No light around him now, no distortion in the air. He looked ordinary again, tired even. That frightened the council more than any display of power. A new transmission forced its way onto every channel, unencrypted and impossible to block. The Galactic Council chamber appeared on every screen, its members seated in perfect order, faces tight with controlled fear. One voice rose above the others. Project Ghost Human, the council speaker said. You will stand down and submit for termination. The human tilted his head slightly, listening. Sirixa felt the moment before he spoke, the weight of history pressing forward. No, he said simply. The single word echoed across systems and stars. Not shouted, not amplified, just spoken. The council chamber erupted in outrage, commands overlapping, threats escalating. But beneath the noise was panic, raw and unmistakable. You were created to serve balance, another council member snapped. You exist because we allowed it. The human's expression did not change. We existed long before you noticed us, he replied. And we survived because you did not. Sirixa stepped forward into view of the transmission, her armor marked by battle, her gaze steady. You erased my memories to protect your power, she said. You hunted him to protect your fear. She paused, letting her words sink in. You failed at both. Across the galaxy, something quiet happened. Species long silenced by council authority began to listen differently. Old records resurfaced. Forbidden archives unlocked themselves. Patterns emerged, too consistent to ignore. Human intervention without recognition. Conflicts ending without victory. Civilizations saved without knowing who saved them. The council speaker's voice faltered. This is manipulation, he insisted. No, the human said gently. This is consequence. He raised a hand, not in threat, but in release. Every human ship powered down visible weapons at once. Defense systems disengaged, shields lowered. A collective breath passed through the galaxy. They were not here to rule. You fear us because you believe power only looks one way, the human continued. You believe conquest is proof of worth. Sirixa remembered countless campaigns, fought for nothing more than control. Worlds taken, lines redrawn, lives reduced to numbers. Humans chose another path. The human said, we learned to endure. We learned to wait. The council tried one last time, issuing a universal override, but nothing responded. Systems refused commands. Fleets ignored orders. Not hacked, not broken, simply uncooperative. Sirixa understood then. Human influence was not domination. It was alignment. The universe itself had learned their pattern. Adapt, balance, persist. You ran this galaxy like a machine, the human said, but it is a living thing. The council chamber fell silent, their authority evaporating in real time. Without fleets, without obedience, without fear. We will not replace you, the human finished. We will not judge you. We will leave. Sirixa turned sharply toward him. Leave, she repeated. He nodded, as we always planned. A final revelation settled across the stars. Humans were not rising to take power. They were stepping away from it. Human ships began to vanish into deep space, not fleeing, not hiding, returning to quiet worlds, forgotten systems, places between maps. Trade routes reopened, borders softened, old enemies stood down, unsure why the war felt finished. Sirixa watched the transmission fade, the council chamber dissolving into static. Their reign had not ended with fire, but with irrelevance. She turned to the human, her voice steady, resolved. And you, she asked, what will you do? He smiled faintly, a tired but honest expression. What I always did, he said. Make sure no one breaks the balance again. She nodded once, understanding the cost of that role. A guardian unseen, a protector unthanked. As he turned to leave, Sirixa spoke one last time. The galaxy will forget you again, she said. He paused, looking back at her. That is fine, he replied. Humans are very good at being forgotten.